Blackpool this week entertain AFC Wimbledon at Bloomfield Road. And if Blackpool are going to maintain their rise at the table, this is a game they must be looking to win. Earlier in the week, I managed to make contact with Mark Lewis, an AFC Wimbledon fan, who kindly offered to have a chat with me as a preview to the game and also talk about what he's been through being a Wimbledon fan for the last 42 years. I cannot thank Mark enough for his time. I hope they enjoyed watching this video as much as I have enjoyed making it for you.
For my sins, I grew up in the area, and my dad took me down to a game in December '77. So that was our first season in the league. Barnsley at home, nil draw. Barnsley had, didn't know them at the time, but some rather well-known people called Neil Warnock and Mick McCarthy playing centre-back.
Wow. That's a great memory, Mark, for 7 years old. It must be.
Well, I don't remember that bit, but I've got the program. There's a whole cupboard worth of programs and binders behind me.
Oh wow! So you actually collect programs? Do you keep all the programs? Wow, you're a fanatic. I love to hear that.
Yeah, not exactly. There are more fanatical women fans than I am. Yeah, got the flag up on the wall there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes, I can see it there in the background.
Can't quite see it, but yeah, just there.
Oh, fantastic. So that was a great time to be a Wimbledon fan. What was it like then, obviously, with the crazy gang and, and that FA Cup final? Was it just amazing times?
When you were a kid, you don't know anything better, do you? I mean, you know, I did the whole journey. I've done the whole journey up and down and up again, so to speak.
Yes.
And I was like 12, 13 when we came out of the division with Dave Bassett, and then I was didn't go to Huddersfield when we got promoted, but I was at the first game in the first division, beat Everton 3-2 off the top of my head, and then we beat Charlton away when Charlton was sharing at Selhurst. Wise scored with a 3-yard tap in, and we were top of the first division after about 6 games. Like, great, yeah, this is happening all the time.
Yeah, it's just normal. It's just normal football.
It's really normal, yeah, exactly. And that went on to, I went to university up in Leeds, and from Leeds I could go to Anfield, I could go to Old Trafford, I could go to Main Road. And I went to all those guys. The only one I think I didn't go to Premier League wise was Goodison for some reason. I don't know why, I never quite got there. But I saw us win basically all those grounds. That was the crazy gang, as they say. That was Fashionly, that was Holdsworth. Before that, Crazy Gang was actually before Fashion New's time. He's tried to take it over. There's a whole book about it where they basically say we're really annoyed that the Fashion New tried to take our legacy, because it was all about lads who'd been rejected by bigger clubs.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Misfits, basically, weren't they? Yeah, really.
Yeah, exactly. Misfits. Together. I mean, Dennis Wise was a misfit. Dennis Wise was rejected by Southampton age 16 because he was too small. But he brushes that one out of the Chelsea captaincy story,
Yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic player. I mean, obviously as a young kid, I can remember, the Vinnie Jones and Gascoigne, thing. The grabbing hold of the testicles and everything, which was, quite funny. It made big news, didn't it? At the time.
Just to show you sort of the change in times, we signed Vinnie from Wealdstone, which is been what is now Conference South.
Yeah.
National South, and we signed him on the Tuesday. He made his debut away at Nottingham Forest, marking Neil Webb on the Saturday. His home debut the week after that, home to Man U with Ferguson there. Scored on his debut with a header, and then when he still had railings and fences around the ground, jumped on the fences to celebrate. And I was on the terrace behind that, going bananas.
Memories indeed. They were great times.
Yeah, I was at the time. I would have been early 20s, mid 20s, whatever. I was then the supporters had been campaigning for years, because loads of different things had been suggested, and mergers with Crystal Palace and so on and so forth. Yeah. It wasn't a lot of fun. We spent about 2 years as supporters fighting for our own club and fighting for our own club's identity. And I was part of the supporters committee, and we had an independent supporters association. Right. That did everything legal and polite and fair and just, and gave evidence to the FA committee. Right. I was in Germany on business in the event sectors where I was working, and I got a text from a friend. This is pre internet and everything else days. Yeah. I got a text from a friend just saying, "Have you heard we've lost?" And even just repeating those words now kind of makes a shiver run down my spine. And I just burst. I was a grown man, and I burst out crying. And
sure. With no right to appeal, wasn't it? It was no right to appeal on that as well.
The arrangement was that both parties went into it with the agreement that there was no right to appeal. Yeah. But I mean, there's so many, there are books have been written about it, and there are so many things that shouldn't have happened within it, and so many things that were the dice was loaded massively against the supporters. So our club was taken away from us in simple terms.
I just can't, honestly, I can't even imagine what that felt like as a fan. We as Blackpool fans, you probably know, we went through the Not a Penny More years with the Oysons, where we all boycotted as well.
Yeah.
And it was at one time looking a little bit like the Oysons were going to take us out of the league and and just close us down. And I'd spoken to quite a few people at the time, and I always imagined that if that happened in a similar way to like Bury now, that I would have followed them all the way through the non-leagues again. And I kind of thought it would be a kind of a magical journey in a way, because you go to all these, we do some non-league videos, we do these non-league away days, and it's some of these non-league grounds are so friendly and so nice, and you go there and the stewards are fantastic, and there's this thing where you go to little grounds in beautiful scenic places where, unlike the big grounds that are big stadiums, you go into these little quaint little villages and stuff to play football, and you're taking probably hundreds, maybe thousands with you to these non-league, and I imagine it will be quite a journey. And looking at the journey you've been through, it looks like it was amazing at times.
It really was. I mean, the most ridiculous thing was that the very first game was actually on my birthday. The very first game in what was the Combined Counties League, which is the highest level we could get to. It's the equivalent of 9 if you think of the Premier League being level 1.
Yeah.
And we were playing teams like Sandhurst and Hove and Godalming and Guildford. Now, Guildford's quite a big city, relatively, south of, but these are very, very nice leafy areas.
Yeah, they are. They're lovely, aren't they? Lovely grounds, picturesque, aren't they?
Well, they weren't lovely grounds. Literally, we went to Sandhurst, and Sandhurst said, "How many fans are you going to bring?" And we said, "We have no idea." And my missus, being wonderful as she was, we didn't have the kids at the time. She arranged a limousine because it was my birthday the day. So we limousine, as you do with like 4 or 5 people. It's a really affluent southeast thing to do. But we arrived and they had a bunch of hay bales out.
Okay.
Hay bales, because they can't afford to put terraces or anything else in there. And they know
hay bales for seats. Wow.
Just rope around a pitch, nothing else. The first season we didn't get promoted because there were some clubs with more finances in there and only one team went up. Second season, we went back and you went to places like Merstham, which is next to the M25, south of London. And they'd spent the money that they'd gained from the fans turning up on proper security fences and facilities so that their local club was actually able to survive and benefit and thrive. And even now, our under-23s, up to, I think, last year, or up to the new stadium being built, indeed, played at Merstham. We kept that link going all the way through.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Because those people treated us so nicely.
Yeah.
Why we, reciprocate.
Yeah, you looked after them. I kind of think that's a similar way to, Rangers when they were, went down 4 leagues and they came back through, through all the leagues, and they did wonders for the, for the little clubs of Scotland, I suppose, taking like, 10,000 to these grounds. It was money they'd never seen before. So.
We did get people who had a chip on the shoulder because they'd been supporting their local club, and there was literally 50 of them and one man and his dog. Yeah. And they were jealous, unfortunately, but all we'd done was follow our club. Like I said, I've been a Wimbledon fan since I was 8. It's the same Wimbledon club, and there are thousands of people who are in exactly the same boat. Some people never went to Selhurst to follow us there, and therefore when AFC Wimbledon started in that level I just described, they came back, so to speak. And, in between, they got married, they got divorced, they'd had kids, their kids were now teenagers or whatever it may be. I was able to take my kids there. I've now got 3 teenagers. And our eldest was literally a baby in a pushchair at that game at Godalming and Guildford. And 13 days old, the first game. Yeah.
Wow. How many fans were you taking away to these matches, would you say?
1,500, 2,000.
We're taking 2,000 to these little. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That first Santos game, I think they recorded the attendance of 2,548.
Oh, that's just amazing. That's just
attendance
amazing.
when you don't actually have a turnstile, I don't quite know.
How many years did it take you to get back into the Football League or together
9.
from?
Oh, I should have put the T-shirt on. Yeah. There's a fans chant which started literally within seconds of Danny Kedwell scoring the winning penalty at the Etihad, which was the playoff final. We beat Luton, and everyone was jumping around. Somebody started and everybody else picked up on 9 years. It only took 9 years.
Yes, it only took 9 years, which
chants.
is
It's a really simple drone chant, but we did it. We carried on doing it.
Yeah, amazing.
And we had 7 promotions in 9 years, and then we had 3 seasons in League Two.
Yeah,
and we made the playoffs in League Two, having been about 12th at Christmas, and didn't expect to make the playoffs at all. Got through that, and had our big day out at Plymouth against Plymouth at Wembley.
Yeah, you actually beat Plymouth, didn't you?
Yeah. They walk all over us. We took 22,000, which is still quite a lot more than our home attendance, and we bossed them on the day and won 2-0.
Am I right in saying that you actually went above MKDons because they get relegated? Yeah, so they went down into League Two and you went up into League One. I bet that was a pretty special moment for Wimbledon fans, wasn't it?
It was, but to be honest, I mean, where you're at now is people like my children and others, because we played at the Kings Meadow ground for so long. That's home for them. I mean, home for me is Plough Lane, which has made the stuff also sweet. But actually, there are some people who say, forget about it, just carry on and do your own thing. And the fact you're even in existence is testament to everything. You don't need to worry, so to speak, or even concern yourself with Milton Keynes. The rest of us that fought the good fight and lost, and as I say, now still feel they wear the emotional scars.
Yeah, so sure.
For us, it'll always be, we don't call them Milton Keynes Dons. There was a whole legal thing about actually the fact that we had a program that literally took the name of the club off completely. We didn't even put the name of the club when we played them on the front cover of the program. We call them scum for better, well, not for want of a better expression. That's what they are,
Yeah,
so.
Sure. It's
unfortunately now, if you look at it totally dispassionately without any involvement, they appear to, I don't know about the financial model, but they appear to actually somehow, even though they run through a number of managers, they appear to attract a number of pretty decent players, and they've got a decent budget. It's all financed by nothing to do with it, but I mean that's their business model, and there are loads of business football which leave a lot to be desired. The organisation called the Dons Trust was set up. It's a mutual society, very similar along the lines of the co-op, set up in Rochdale all those years ago. The same co-op, markets and insurance and everything else for now. And it is owned and controlled by the Dons Trust. The Dons Trust have a board. The board themselves are fans themselves. I'm not on the board. Friends of mine are, but you could just stand as a fan if you want to be elected, and you stay together like a politician would. And then they report into a football club board, which has a very small number of paid employees who run the club on a day-to-day basis. When we went into Kings Meadow is that it was an unfortunate situation for Kingstonian, the non-league club who were there, in that they had Icarus spent a lot of money in the conference to try and get through, didn't run out of money, and the club and the stadium separately was sold to a businessman. And then the businessman was kind and generous enough to allow us to rent the stadium. After 2 or 3 games where Kingstonian were getting 300 or 400 in 3 or 4 levels above us, and we were getting 3,500 for our home games, he saw he was in, and he sold us the stadium, and he made about £2 million on his investment within about 15 months.
Wow.
So we were there, and we were allowing Kingstonian to stay there and pay us a very, very small minimal rent. But the plan was always to go back to Merton, was always to go back to Wimbledon, always build our own stadium, and that has been the plan since forever, really, since we left in 1991.
Plough Lane is your spiritual home.
Your question about running as a fans club, it's not easy because you don't have the ability to sign a Jay Spearing or sign a Gary Medine, who may be on a decent wage because they've been at a higher level,
Sure.
So, for example, we scrambled a draw the other night at Shrewsbury, and the kid that got the draw is a 18, 19-year-old making his league debut, Anglo-Moroccan kid who came through our academy scheme, who's released by, I forget who, but released by a Premier League club, aged about 12, 13. And that's the type of thing that we do, and that's the type of thing that the way that we manage. That may mean this season or future years, it may well mean, unfortunately, that we are not necessarily at a level where we have the resource to be able to have the quality of player that will keep us in League One. And there is a discussion and some disagreement between some fans about that, because they're at a certain age, or they see everybody in the Premier League buying, Timo Werner for Chelsea for 40 million or whoever it may be, or with people who are obviously following Premier League clubs, and the investment levels there are huge. Course, but I mean, and the issue we have is that sometimes the type of player that we're in a position to afford or in a position to acquire may well be someone who is playing at League One level because they are either essentially not good enough for a high level, or that they have an injury record, which means they're a bit of a risk.
There's just always some sort of problem with them, but we all sort of trade around in this market, don't we, down here? We're not fishing in the Premier League market because none of us can afford that kind of money unless you've got a billionaire owner, but no. We just kind of get these players on freeze.
Well, and the other interesting thing to it is that, I mean, it's got to be dog eat dog in Lancashire in terms of the number of clubs you have there in League One and League Two. But what I find with Blackpool, you had people like Sully Kaikai in the past, and with Accrington at the moment, there are some very interesting links with Premier League clubs based in London, in and around London, who appear to be very happy, in fact, very willing to send their young players out on loan, but not send them to anywhere near the southeast. They want to send them up north. They want to send them to Lancashire. They want to send them to so to speak, a much more lower level, more simplistic, for want of a better word, club.
Yeah,
their trade, and we lose out in that regard. We've got some links with people like Brentford, and also one or two players have come from Reading. But, we lose out in that regard because you think, well, why don't we get Chelsea players? Because Chelsea is the closest club to us, generally speaking.
I thought you had sort of links with Chelsea because did you not sell them Kings Meadow? Have you not sold them Kings Meadow to build your new stadium?
So the arrangement that was made there was that they knew finance-wise that the only way it was going to work for the whole plot that has been developed at Plough Lane is that go into partnership with a property developer who has built flats around the actual house, around the area. So if you go past it, you don't know it, then you would see all the flats, which are about 15 stories tall, and the football stadium is actually lower than that. It's almost submerged by it, really. But at the same time, to obviously essentially get rid of the asset of Kings Meadow. They didn't need that as well. So that was sold to Chelsea. Chelsea used to play the reserve games there 20 years ago plus anyway.
What are Chelsea going to use that for, Mark?
They have bought it and they have renovated it and they're using it for their ladies. We did benefit actually reasonably well in that the last season we played there, last season before the pandemic hit, they were already the owners and their ladies team were already playing there, and they insisted on bringing their own grounds people in. So actually, it was probably the best pitch in League One. You ever see now the Women's Football Show or any clips of the Women's Premier League? That ground with all the blue around it and everything else that Chelsea play on, Chelsea play in their Champions League games or the Ladies Champions League, whatever it's called. That was where we played for 15, 16 years.
It was a bit of a disaster night for Blackpool. That we got 2 men sent off, down to 9 men, and we actually finished up almost equalising, didn't we? I don't know if you remember it, but the 9 men.
To be honest, I watched the game on iFollow, and I was watching with my 2 young children, and you know, like teenagers are, they're quite cynical about it all, and they couldn't believe that you didn't win the game, let alone equalise. I mean,
I know.
I forget the other guy, but Ballard got himself stupidly sent off for no particular reason.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird night.
But even so, you still had the major chances. We were very timid. I think the being in the new ground overawed us overall.
Yeah.
So yeah, on the night for the game itself, you should have won. I've been there once. I helped out.
It looks really nice. It looks very nice.
It's got one major large stand with 3 floors and inbuilt hospitality, and you can walk through the complex, and that'll be where you've got your major hospitality areas as well as club shop and bars and everything else. And the other 3 stands that all link round are lower level, and they probably only fit about 1,500 in each. You can get about 15, I think, in the away end, which is behind one of the goals.
Right.
But the reality is that, no disrespect to Blackpool, but with the exception of maybe 4 or 5 League One teams, the likes of Portsmouth, the likes of Sunderland, we know who they are.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily going to need more than a few hundred, unless someone's on a particularly big run in terms of the away capacity. But we're confident, you'll get the best part of 7,000 or 8,000 or so home fans in there, because there's a whole generation of supporters, just like the Renaissance was with Blackpool. And I saw those people coming back for that first game. And
sure, yeah.
to be honest, I'm not a Blackpool fan, obviously, but it filled me with pride as a football fan that you'd fought the good fight as Blackpool fans. Well done to you all, and been able to get to your ground to support your club.
Yeah, it was an historic moment, and it has been deemed as one of the most successful fan protests in the history of football. Actually, that we actually did what we did. We were helped by Valerie Bellacon taking the Oysters to court as well, but he probably wouldn't have done as well, without such media focus on what the Oysters had done. The way they had illegitimately stripped the assets of the club, as they were judged, and they did. It was very sad, but we're back, and that's great. And hopefully you'll be back in your stadium soon, because I'm sure you're all chomping at the bit to get in there, aren't you? Spent all these years waiting to get back to Plough Lane, and now you're back and you can't get in.
I was there for about an hour to help some people unload some stuff to put it into the club shop. The club shop's been built. We were operating out of a temporary structure in a nearby shopping centre for a while until lockdown happened at Christmas. And obviously the shop is built, but we can't even go in there, so it hasn't even been opened yet. You've got all the stock ready and stuff, and because that's the way it was. But I was able to walk around the stadium, and even just walking around the stadium and taking a little video to your throat, because simple things like having an all-seater stadium, however big or small it is,
Sure. Yeah.
It's going to be the main stand at Kings Meadow had 8 or 9 rows off the top of my head. So we were halfway back in the stand, but we were only 5 rows back.
Yeah.
10 rows back. The view's going to be so much better. It's
going to be amazing. Honestly, you'll absolutely love it when you get back, and all the best to all of you, really. I'm so pleased as a football fan that you've done this journey and you've stuck together and you've done what you've done and you've got back into the Football League and you're back. It's a proper football story, and I love it.
It might sound bizarre for this guy who's scored 15 or 16 goals.
Yeah.
But he's very, very hot and cold. There were rumours that he was going to leave or be transferred or whatever. But frankly, if I'd been a scout watching him this season, I would have thought, you know what? He can't hit the ball. He doesn't like hitting the ball. He's not really a target man. His shooting is decent. But if you get a big, strong target man, if you get a big, strong centre back on him, someone like Hennigan, for example, who obviously is playing for us now, used to play for you guys. If you get a big centre back on him and taking care of him, then he may well keep him quiet, and that obviously isn't great for us overall, because where else are the goals coming from? Because no one, I think, scored more than about 5 or 6 goals. What I would say, the new manager, Robinson, came in 2 or 3 games ago. He's changed the formation. So we were playing 3-5-2. We were wedded to 3-5-2. But the problem was it was mainly 5-3-2. We weren't really getting the wing backs forward. So we didn't penetrate enough. We didn't get enough crosses in. Now he's playing 4 at the back, straight forward, 4 at the back, 2 midfield players, and then 3 attacking midfield players coming in wings and so on.
4-2-3-1 is he playing, yeah?
Yeah, 4-2-3-1, yeah. So who to look out for? I'd say probably Jack Rodoni.
Yeah.
Who is, again, an academy graduate. There are probably 3 or 4 academy graduates playing in the team, young sort of 18, 19-year-olds. He's, a local lad from the area, still lives at home and everything else. Only signed a professional contract less than 18 months or so ago. Only scored a couple of goals this season, but he has that fearless, impish streak in him that will run at people, create things, have a go, potentially, good left foot. Piggott, obviously, if Piggott is given the opportunity, he'll do some stuff. We have a lot of defensive midfield players who can do stuff, but we always think they should be able to create more and actually score goals themselves. But they haven't necessarily been able to create so much overall. So I'd say Redoni possibly in midfield. Shane McLaughlin, little Irishman, excellent player. He's been converted this season to playing right back or right wing back, but his best position is central midfield. And if he's playing, he'll be quite tigerish.
The feeling here is that we can make amends for the away performance. How are you feeling down there about the game?
Watch football the way we've had to watch it this year and seen so many defensive calamities, then you hesitate to be confident about any particular game. Even we a couple of weeks ago, we were 2-0 up and hit the bar inside the first 20 minutes, and we scraped it. So we should have walked away with that game. Our issue really is we haven't had any consistency of anything. We've had 3 goalkeepers, probably 5 full-backs, 6 or 7 centre-backs. Piggott's probably the only one really that's been consistent in terms of selection, but actually that's probably really been because the other centre forward that we signed, Ollie Palmer from Crawley, has been injured for all but about 3 games. And therefore, we have a choice other than picking Piggott when there have been some games when he should have been rested overall. So I think to be quietly confident, at the very least, that you're going to win would be sensible. We're not really expecting much from away games. We didn't expect anything from Shrewsbury. I texted a mate, he's a Shrewsbury fan, said, be kind to us.
Right, okay.
84th minute equaliser, so he was kind to us,
Yeah.
He texted me back today saying jammy equaliser. It's like they all count.
They certainly do. Well, all I can say is may the best team win on Saturday, and best of luck to AFC Wimbledon. I hope obviously, we get to play you again sometime. I would love to go down and, see the new stadium and everything else. So I think it's an amazing journey. And I really appreciate your time for coming on. And,
no problem at all. Feel free to allow us at least a point on Saturday, which will help us one, and then potentially we'll play you next season, and then we can share a beer together in Plough Lane.
Yeah, definitely. Would really like that. Thank you very much for your time.
Take care. Thanks, Lee.
Cheers.
Now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.